So what's the problem? You know, what's so bad about life? What makes the world so shitty? You know, I noticed when I was young, everybody says the world is shitty and going to hell in a handbasket. Pretty much, you know. I mean, even those that do have optimism about the world and the future tend to do that in the same way you whip a horse. You know, well, it's the only way we're going to get there. But yeah, so what's the problem there? Everybody thinks there's a problem, but we can't do anything about it. Well, it's because everybody thinks the problem is different, and also because, oh, actually, we are doing things about it. You know, I really advocate that people look at a couple thousand years of history. It's available, and you start to see some interesting things. I mean, there's definitely some people doing some things and some invention of devices and social institutions that help. You know, you make slavery illegal, etc. Now, overall, you know, trend spotting is, you know, always a tricky science, right? Is it a trend, or is it? No, we don't know that it's really going to go somewhere, but we do know, well, it is possible. You know, you can have a society that's impoverished and it can, you know, invent an infrastructure for itself and do better, and the people can be more prosperous. And the tricky part that we don't know is, can those people be prosperous without subjugating others, enslaving others, without war? When I look at the world and I say that it's fucked up, I mean, there's a lot of fucked up things. There's like a guy with terminal cancer, and there's you know, an earthquake, but to me, those things are all endurable. It's like with the Japanese tsunami. The tsunami is really obviously terrible enough. I mean, it brought a tear to my eye when I was seeing the first footage, just like an hour after it happened. I was watching we were all awake and like, whoa, in Hawaii, you know, ready to wait for the wave, and I was watching those, and it's just like, wow, that's a terrible, terrible thing. But to me, it's fundamentally different from like the nuclear plant problem. And not just because the nuclear plant thing lasts longer, but more because that kind of tends to be the case. These stupid poisonings that we do tend to have these long ramifications. As bad as an earthquake or a hurricane is, you have a couple days of devastation, and then you get a chance to repair, hopefully. I mean, obviously, it could be in the snow, it could be really bad, but when I'm zeroing in on what I think makes life shittier than it has to be, it's stuff like that, and partly it's in the definition of that it has to be. I accept nature. You know, I'm like, well, let's build a stronger nuclear reactor or further from the coast, or I mean, those are my kind of approaches to those sorts of things. But, you know, basically I accept nature, so when then, you know, if there's something we can do to protect ourselves, and we should do it, but also we just face those sorts of things. Whereas I don't really feel like I should have to face, you know, Nazism and slavery. So when I break down in my complaint about the social system, it's just absolutely the slavery and war thing, which, you know, I have for a long time felt were two aspects of the same exact phenomena, that you don't have slavery without war, and war really is about slavery. And you know, the whole model, oh, it's about protection. I'm sorry, it's not. It's a kind of dominance that, I mean, because with slavery, the thing is, it's like you can bully people. You can't bully a whole bunch of individuals one at a time into being slaves. To bully people to the point to make them slaves, you know, you have to bully them before you even know them. You have to put them so they're born into a bullied situation. It has to be, you know, happen before you know them as an individual. And that's war. War is how that's always been done. And a funny thing, the weird, special, and perhaps especially ugly part of American slavery was sort of like, it didn't even have the dignity of being from a war. It was really just like, well, we don't have the energy for a war. Let's just do the rape and pillage part, you know, boom, boom, special ops style. pull these guys out. You know, it's like when the warriors finally realized, no, the war, we just want the slaves. Ironies like that. But anyway, so to me, that's the problem. Now, how do we stop these people from running the world? Oh, now there's a problem. We're already in the slave system. We're already in this war mentality. Now, for centuries now. So it's the people. It's the so-called slaves themselves have to do something. How do they have their slave revolt? Well, first they'd have to want one. So to me, what sucks about the world, what makes the world potentially, you know, like not worth being in so much as working on to get it to a better state, it comes down to the slaves and why they be slaves, and why even if so many of them yearn and fight for their freedom, why there's always still this tendency to respect this ill-gotten authority, this selfish, non-social authority, you know. And so that's to me why the main issue is philosophical, because I believe that tendency in humans comes from a belief in human hierarchies, and just a misunderstanding of hierarchy, sort of a glorification of hierarchies as a fundamental, as if hierarchies really exist. I mean, I use hierarchies in programming a lot because it's a filing system, but people actually think it's like fundamental, and then suddenly, you know, you're not just filed as a worker and he's the boss. You're fundamentally, that is you and yourself. You're the worker. He's fundamentally the boss. He's fundamentally above you in reality, not just for purposes of who tells who to buy paper clips when. And this mentality I've seen in many different, in people of many different philosophical bents, you know, and there's just a constant tendency. You see it in the tendency that people think, we just need a good leader. We just need a good leader. We need Obama or Dean. We just need a good leader. No, you need a good attitude. You need to be able to lead yourself, kind of thing. We need a good candidate. But, you know, human beings just reach out for that hierarchy time and time again, and think that people are better based on that, and they, you know, and this is what depresses me about humans, is their status-oriented thinking, which is related to the fact that their primary social cognitive model is this hierarchy, and so their status, they're obsessed with their status. Where is their status? Where are they on the hierarchy? Meanwhile, I've met people from all over the hierarchy and had extended conversations. That's one thing in my life I'm happy with. I've talked philosophy with homeless people for extended periods of time, with famous professors and business people and all the in-betweens, that I could get a hold of, you know, different nationalities, inappropriate topics, you know, meet someone from Chile, ask them what they think of Pinochet. Very interesting, actually, what Chileans think of Pinochet, various Chileans. But anyway, another subject. And so, you know, so there's this collection, and all throughout, people make category and hierarchy errors and use status mathematics. And I've never found that your particular place in these status hierarchies actually was related very directly to anything about your character or your happiness level or anything, even health, right? Health. The most wealthy should be healthy. Well, statistically, but on an individual level, you know, no, you get saved from a medical crisis. But I've known people, backpackers, staying very healthy. So, because in terms of a healthy attitude and a healthy perspective. So where is the status hierarchy meld with reality? And it's only because we all accept it. And yet in this modern world, and in the West, or in America, I think, or anyway, it's common to realize it's all bullshit, and yet we still live by it. Why? Well, because everybody else accepts it, because that's how your job and your pay and everything. So it's like we're at this point where we know that's all bullshit, and your boss isn't really better than you, but then you live that way, and you're still. Barklord made an interesting point of, like, if you invite your boss over to dinner, having nothing to do with work, you still feel intimidated by him. Why is that? That shouldn't be. It shouldn't. Because you go to work and say, this is the person who tells me, gives me my task. That doesn't make them better. Or this intimidation, this thorough intimidation, it's like it is possible to have a mentality where a boss knows that his authority is having to do with, moving things around the warehouse you work in, or, that's his authority. It doesn't, there is no other authority, and there is no, I'm going to fire you at work because, you put mustard on my hamburger, And it's funny because most bosses don't think that way, and they're like, I'm just coming as an ordinary people, and they can't escape this ubiquitous hierarchical thinking. So to me, people would be much more tolerable if they would overcome that. But I'm willing to live even if they don't.